All right, it is 7:02 or thereabouts. It is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, and I am calling to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville. We are on Zoom tonight, and Candace, we will start with roll call.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Robin Klein.
Here.
Isaac Shanley.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Jason Arts.
Here.
Okay, the first order of business on our agenda is a public hearing on Resolution 2104, a conditional use permit for Iverson Construction Asphalt Plant. Joe.
Yes, so this is a request that's been submitted annually since 1993 to allow Iverson Construction to operate the asphalt plant in the rock quarry. The entrance to that rock quarry is off of Mineral Street, so it's just on the north side of the city. This is really a kind of a standard procedure that we've been doing since that time. The only issues that have come up over the years have been related to dust complaints coming from that entrance driveway from Mineral Street. And I know it came up a few years back in the early 2000s. Generally, that was eliminated when they did pave that entrance driveway. It previously was a gravel crushed rock driveway. That took care of most of the issues. And then when we do have a severely dry summer, they do have some additional issues that occasionally pop up. So they just do some spraying to alleviate that. And the combination of those two seems to have addressed the problem. So other than that, there really is no changes to the request from previous years from the applicant, and no other issues that staff would identify. So the one change that we'd like the council to consider, it came up at the Plan Commission meeting when this was discussed, and actually it had come up. I was thinking about it a couple of years back, a similar conversation, but generally the question was, why does this have to be submitted annually? Most of the conditional use permits that are approved by the city are basically a one and done. The council sets the conditions. As long as those conditions are met, the operation of that use can continue. So the Plan Commission kind of discussed that and basically decided that this should be in that same situation, since we really have not had, ongoing problems with this use. So their recommendation is to, obviously the two conditions that we always put on there, it's subject to this property only. Obviously, the applicant would provide dust control as needed along the driveway where it intersects Mineral Street. And then there was discussion kind of from last year with the bike lane crossing that entrance driveway, that if necessary, they'll put signage or other controls onto that intersection. But otherwise, with those conditions, the other one would be that the approval continues as long as those approval conditions are met without the need for additional approval. If staff becomes aware of any issues with the operations, then we can bring it back to the Plan Commission. And at that time, the Plan Commission can make a determination if other conditions are warranted or if other action is necessary to place on this approval. But otherwise, they're recommending that it be approval that continues without the need to come back annually. So with those conditions, staff would agree with that recommendation. Any questions for me? Barb, you're on mute.
Before questions of you, Joe, is there anybody here from Iverson tonight? From the company? I don't see Jared would be the one that attended the Plan Commission, but I thought the next thing is actually applicant statement. So I thought before we ask questions of you, Joe, we would see if the applicant was here, but not. So questions. Robin, any question of Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding. So previously there was concerns or complaints about the bike lane. And if I understand, the company talked to their drivers and were suggesting in the future, if there's additional concerns, that signage would then be put in place.
Correct. Yeah, so.
concerns, we might bring it back in front of the plan commission.
Right. So to my knowledge, we've never actually received a complaint regarding a user of the trail. It was a plan commissioner that I think was just being proactive and asking the question if that is a concern, what do we do in that situation? So yeah, I don't know if it was Jared or somebody else had commented that he was, first thing that they would do is just talk to the drivers and make sure that they're aware of it and they use appropriate speed. And that seems to have worked. If he did that, like I said, we haven't received any word that there's been an issue, but they did agree that if further steps were necessary, they would put signage up for the drivers as they use that driveway to use appropriate speed, just as a reminder that there is a trail crossing there if people are not aware of it. So that would be, I guess, an example of, if problems arise, staff can look into it further, and if necessary, take it to the plan commission and decide if additional, action is warranted, and then send it on to the council if appropriate actions needed.
Okay. Eileen, any questions, comments of Joe?
No questions.
Kathy,
No questions.
Jason,
Nope.
Isaac,
None.
Ken?
No.
Okay, the next item on a public hearing are public statements in favor. I have had no one register to speak in favor of this conditional use permit. Public statements against, I've had no one register to speak against this conditional use permit. And public statements in general, I've had nobody register to speak about it at all. So I guess now on a public hearing, we're to council discussion. Any additional discussion, Robin? Nope. Eileen,
No.
Kathy,
Nothing.
Jason,
No.
Isaac,
No.
Ken.
No.
Okay, then a motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Kathy to close the public hearing. We'll vote. Candace?
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and at this point in time, then it would be time for if there is council action to be taken and what action that would be. So I would entertain any type a motion if someone so desires.
I'll move to approve the conditional use permit to allow operation of an asphalt plant in the rock quarry at 1100 East Mineral Street with the following conditions. A, the permit shall apply to only the subject property. The applicant provides dust control as needed along the driveway where it intersects with Mineral Street, and truck speed control on the driveway near the bike lane as needed. C, the permit approval is in effect for as long as the conditions are met. If problems arise with the use, staff will submit the item to the Plan Commission for potential changes to the conditions or additional action.
Second.
Did I hear a second from Eileen?
No,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, well, we have a motion by Jason and a second by Ken to the motion. Candace will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate if you would prefer separate discussion on any of the items. First, we have council minutes from March the 9th, both the special and the regular meeting. Second, we have payment of bills. Third, appointments to boards and commissions. I have none tonight. And Fourth, we have licenses, 1 and 2 year operator licenses to sell and serve alcohol, as were detailed in the packet, and a change of agent for the Class B combination beer and alcohol license for Gina's Restaurant and Bar LLC Platteville, Regina Pauley to be the agent for the premises at 45 North 2nd Street, Gina's Whiskey Bar.
Make a motion to approve the consideration of the consent calendar.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as presented by Isaac and second by Kathy. Candace will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein,
yes,
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
yes,
Cop,
yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. Again, I had nobody register in advance to speak at this particular time. So I believe we will therefore, I think the majority of the people in the audience are here for an item on the agenda. We'll move along to the next agenda item. So a part of that are reports of boards, commissions, and committees. First, the Freudenreich Animal Care Trust Fund Committee, Robin.
nothing to add.
Water and Sewer Commission, that's Killian, Shanley, and me.
no addition,
I have
No
nothing.
additions.
Okay, nothing for me. Museum Board, Eileen.
just a note that there is one Lyceum program coming yet up on Sunday, the 28th, and you can contact the museum if you would still like to register for that.
And congratulations to the museum. My understanding is they've had upwards of 150 people attending these lyceums on a Sunday afternoon, and not all of them are located in Platteville. Okay, Library Board,
Thank you.
Klein.
Nothing to add.
Airport Commission, Kathy.
Nothing to add.
Community Safe Routes Committee, Jason.
Nothing additional?
Okay. That concludes our reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Let us go on then to the action items. The first action item tonight is contract 3-21, the Dewey Street Reconstruction Project. Howard.
Yes, thank you very much. This project will reconstruct Dewey Street from Water to Elm Street. Our base bid is to reconstruct the water, sanitary, storm, and street for the entire length of the project. The base bid does not include any sidewalk replacement or new sidewalk installation. Alternate A, the Water and Sewer Commission voted to approve award alternate A for replacing a small section of sanitary sewer south of Dewey on Jefferson Street. It was a bad section that needed to be replaced. Alternates B, C, and D are regarding sidewalk. Alternate B would be to replace the sidewalk as is currently, except for about 225 feet east of 2nd Street, just a tiny little stub. Alternate C would install brand new sidewalk where none exists now on the south side from Sickle Street to Elm Street. That would complete the grid in that area. Alternate D would install new sidewalk on East Dewey Street from 2nd Street down to Water Street and continuing that stub. I needed to correct something from last time. If alternates C or D are awarded, there will be at least 2 trees that will need to be removed to install the sidewalk. Doing this would leave a very small terrace, about 2.5 feet. Our budget This project and all alternates came in well under budget. And so we also had this reviewed by the Community Safe Routes Committee last week. They obviously recommend all 3 sidewalk alternate bids. However, if new sidewalk is not accepted, they strongly recommend that alternate B is selected so that we replace the current existing sidewalk. And so staff is recommending the award to Owens Excavating, the low bidder, with alternates as selected.
With the alternates that, you mean with A, B, C, and D?
Staff would recommend all alternates, A through
Okay.
D, correct.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that I understood and that everybody understood. So the staff recommendation is to award the contract, including all alternates. Alternate A is for sewer project that would be, that was already approved by the Water and Sewer Commission. And then B, C, and D are all sidewalk. Okay, discussion. Robin,
I didn't want to go first on this one. Well, I had, said on the last conversation about sidewalks policy, we should follow the recommendation of the commission. Yet I hesitate on D, given comments by homeowners. So I'm still sitting on a fence here myself. I definitely would go with B and C for certain, and could imagine some cost savings on D, given others' input, I guess.
okay, Eileen,
I would concur with Robin. I think alternate B and C, but not D.
and A, of course.
And A, of course, but that, that's, yeah, the water and sewer's already approved that one. So yes, I understand we have to include it though.
Okay, Kathy,
I agree with both Robin and Eileen.
Jason,
I would say that I would want to support the full recommendation by the Safe Routes Committee. However, I'm definitely willing to look at ABC as an alternative.
okay. Isaac,
I'd be, excuse me, I'd be in favor obviously with A, being what we did for the water and sewer, as well as B and C. Not as much in favor of the alternative D. I guess if we were to replace all the sidewalk on the north side of the street, personally, I don't see, there's no sidewalk there now on the south side. Again, I don't see the problem with, walking across the street to get onto a new sidewalk, as well as the property that's on the corner of Dewey and Water Street. A new sidewalk there would pretty much almost eliminate them from using their driveway or parking in their driveway. The same with the second property, and there's some other issues as well, just a tree removal. There's the use of existing driveways. So I'd be in favor of A, B, and C.
okay. Ken,
ABC,
well, folks, is then someone ready to make a motion on contract 3-21? Looking for a motion.
I'd
I'll
make a
move
motion.
to award the contract 321 Dewey Street Reconstruction with alternatives A, B, and C to Owens Excavating at the bid price of $1 million, $1,399,388.55.
second,
I'd-
Okay, we have a motion by Jason and a second by Ken. Isaac, you gotta be faster. It's like
Yep.
we're playing some kind of game tonight. So Candace will vote. Where did
Yes.
Candace?
I'm here.
Yes,
Doss.
yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley. He's frozen.
He's frozen. Isaac,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. He's frozen. We'll come back to him.
Come back. Nichols? Oh,
She's muted. She's muted.
Muted, yes.
Cop?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
And
there's a-
yes. Motion carries.
I think
Yes.
Isaac came back. Isaac, are you there now?
Oh, he's still dead.
He's,
Oh, well, I say yes too. I don't know. It might have gotten mixed in with Isaac's yes.
all right. Well, we have 6 for sure yeses, so we'll at least say that the motion.
Yep, I voted yes, Barb.
Oh, there we go.
I
Yeah,
thought I
we-
heard him.
you're not moving, Isaac, so we don't
Yep.
know. We can't see you.
For some reason, I'm freezing up here every once in a while.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought you would have voted yes because you said you would, but then we couldn't hear you. All right, so let's make that a unanimous vote and move on to action item B, which is contract 4-21, the Deborah Court drainage repair. Howard,
Yes. This project is to repair the eroded drainage feature between Deborah Court and West Gulf Drive. It runs generally down the lot lines between them. Over the years, the swale has eroded. We've had comments from adjoining property owners that are concerned about the safety for mowing near this feature and children playing near this. Over the years, the swale has moved and actually gone outside the easement. What we would be doing is we would move it back within the easement, reinforce the bottom, widen and flatten it to reduce the velocities. And basically just reduce the amount of erosion. Shallow sloping sides so that it'll also be able to be mowed. We had some additional alternate bids that would use different products. The base bid is a good product that would provide good erosion protection for 10+ years. The alternate B is what I would consider a better product that would provide the protection for 15+ years and has some additional cost. The Tide concrete block mat is the best. It will provide 20+ years. And then we also have some aesthetic concerns regarding those, as well as cost more than doubling. Since the Dewey Street project that you just approved came in under budget, we've discussed it last time. Should the council wish to use the alternate B, adding the $36,000, we can still do that within the budget savings of the Dewey Street project. I have a large spreadsheet at the very end that kind of goes through all those alternatives. And based on the action that you just took, there's going to be another $16,000 for alternate D from last time that would be added back in. So regardless whether you want to use the base bid or the alternate B, it falls within our budgets, combined budgets. So it's up to you.
okay. Robin, questions?
No.
Eileen,
I have no questions.
Kathy,
No questions.
Jason,
No questions.
Isaac,
No questions.
Ken,
I have a couple questions. This material here, you talk about 15 years lasting, that's B. Okay, when you get down to it's no good or reduced in the effectiveness, what has happened to it? And then second part of the question is, what do you have to do to go back and control erosion. Do you understand my questions? In other words, it's supposed to last 15 years, so then after 15 years or so, what has happened to it? And the second part is, what do you have to do? Do you have to start all over again and spend the money again, the same amount, or will it take a smaller amount?
I would hope that it would take a smaller amount. I'll have Dan comment after this, but what I mean by lasting 15 plus years is that depending on the severity of the rainstorms over that time period, there may be some minor areas, small holes that may develop. What ends up happening is because the plastic grid system is in there, it will, instead of allowing a large hole to develop, it'll just make little smaller holes, and it will be easier to go back through and just basically repair those smaller holes. You know, when I say when the full life of this is over with, then you would probably have to replace it. But you know, I could easily see, like I say, 15 plus years before we need to do even the minor repairs. But let's see what Dan thinks.
Yeah, Howard, I would concur that, you know, over the course of time, as long as we don't have continuously large storms of the 100-year nature, this product will last at least 15 years. Over the course of time, there will be some small maintenance required. For example, if an area, after a large storm event, if we get a little bit of washout of just the grass, you know, we'll want to get that patched up right away. And then when we start getting into those, you know, 15 plus years, there may be some places where we have to replace a section or two, you know, just because it's worn out. So Ken, one of your questions was how much is it going to cost at 15 years to replace it? Not nearly this cost, because, you know, we're just going to be doing more repair. However, at some point in time, whether it's 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, when it does get replaced, it'll have to be a full replacement at that point in time, with a, you know, a product that's similar, or who knows, maybe in that time frame they've come up with a better product. But I do agree with Howard that this is going to last 15 plus years, and you know, if you know how long it lasts after that will depend upon storm events, and then how well it's maintained in that time frame.
And the best product here is riprap, and you didn't want to use that, too expensive?
Well, the best product is the alternate A, the Tide concrete block system. The riprap, the problem with that is if you go any swale or ditch that has a lot of velocity, and you'll see over time that riprap moves because it's not tied together. And the other thing it does is it fills up full of debris, and then you start getting weeds and trees and everything else growing into it. So I would say in this situation that riprap is not the best alternative, which is why that was not even an option.
My last thing is a comment, the second paragraph. You talk about to reduce erosion, and use that term reduce twice. And I prefer the term control. So what you're recommending here is going to control the erosion or reduce it down to?
Yeah, it's a both. I mean, we're going to control it because we're going to take some of the energy out of the water by flattening out or making the channel wider. And then that's controlling it. And then we're going to reduce it because in some areas, the swale is just so steep, there's absolutely no way that we can control it. So then that comes into the reduce.
It appears Ken's questions have been answered as he's muted himself. And personally, I can't support the base bid because I can't believe that we would keep people off their own lawns when it rains. So I'm supportive of alternate B. So folks, are you ready to act on this? If so, who would offer a motion?
I'll move to award contract 4-21 Deborah Court drainage repair to JI Construction with alternate B at the bid price of $121,353.10, with the over budget amount to be absorbed by the capital project budget.
second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award this contract with alternate B. Candace, will vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein,
Yes.
Hanley,
he's muted.
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
yes,
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we move on now to the third item on our action agenda, Resolution 2105, Development Agreement and Sale Documents, Scannell Properties. And I know there are several people on the call who have joined us, but Joe, I guess we'll start with you, and perhaps as you work through your comments, you can introduce the others that you have been working with that have joined us, like David, and I don't see Patrick, but Mr. Buck. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so back at the February 9th meeting, the council did approve actually two actions, the consolidation of lots 39 through 43 of the Industry Park. And that's to create a larger parcel that was also agreed by the council to sell to Scannell Properties LLC. And they were going to use that property to construct a 342,000, I think now the plans show it's closer to 350,000 square foot building, which we found out that night will be used by Cummins Corporation as a warehouse, distribution, and associated uses in that facility. So this is a follow-up to that previous approval. So we have a development agreement that goes with that, which is kind of a standard procedure for our industry park sale of property. So it's the development agreement and the associated legal documents that go with that sale and approve the sale of that property. So just to reiterate, the sale will be according to the terms of the Industry Park land price formula, which is our standard process. So the ultimate price of the land depends on the value of the project created and the jobs and pay of those jobs created. But ultimately, the sale will be for $1 an acre if all is as projected to be. So the attorneys have been working on that. I believe Bill Cole is here this evening as well. David Duncan is the attorney for Scannell. They also have an outside attorney that's been working on some of the title documents. I don't believe she's with us this evening. Patrick Marcotte from Scannell is also here this evening to be available to answer any questions that the council may have. Before I pass it on to Bill, because he's been doing most of the work on this with David, one thing that did come up through the title policy was there were some items identified in that title commitment regarding the covenants that are in place for land in the industry park and whether or not this project met all of those requirements of the title, or all the covenant requirements. And the title company was a little concerned about that. They wanted to have that clarified. The covenant committee has met and approved this project. And during that meeting, when we reviewed that, there was a specific discussion of all of the items that were identified in that title policy commitment. Basically, it was regarding the landscaping, the amount of landscaping, the amount of impervious area on the lot, the precast concrete as an exterior building material, the location of the outdoor storage area, and then the location of the fencing. So all those items were specifically discussed by the covenant committee and specifically approved by the covenant committee to authorize them as proposed as part of this project. So as part of the motion, I think we agreed that it would be best if the council also specifically mention that they're authorizing those covenants exceptions as approved by the covenant committee. So that should alleviate the concerns that title commitment raised. So I know, as I mentioned, Bill Cole and David Duncan have been working on the language in the development agreement. And I did want to mention that one of the other items that is kind of unique with this development agreement is we also did include some language in there regarding a future extension of Vision Drive and associated infrastructure that the city will agree to do if this project goes forward. And basically what we want to do is get the language in this agreement, and we can hopefully use this as a basis to apply for some additional grants to help with some of the costs of that Vision Drive extension. So we wanted to get that in writing to help with that grant paperwork. So I think Bill is here, I believe, if he has anything to add at this time.
Thank you, Joe. Joe covered pretty much the nature of the project, and the reason legally we need a development agreement, aside from just the normal prudence of it, is there's going to be a land write down here. Scannell will purchase the land at a written down amount, and in exchange for building to certain values and their tenant then creating certain jobs. And if all of that is done, then the land is at the price that we sell it at. If they don't do that, then there's sort of a clawback provision in there where Scannell will purchase it at the 1.4 roughly value. So assuming that's going to happen, we are going to have a land write down that would be charged against the TIF, against TID 6. As Joe mentioned, we're also planning on extending Vision Drive to serve this development. Those costs, again, would be charged to TID 6. We're just about a week shy of the expenditure period closing on TID 6. So we're all sort of hurrying to get, by law, we need to have a development agreement executed prior to that expenditure period running. So those are the two main things that implicate the TIF requirement. There is no, the only thing unusual about this agreement is that there is no guaranteed increment of value in there. That's common in TIF agreements. This project is sufficiently sizable, though, that is not an anticipated problem. It's going to more than cover the cost, so that's not a problem. The only thing I did want to point out to you all is, aside from needing to beat this expenditure period, the draft I noticed in your packet is slightly out of date. Mr. Duncan and I have been really expediting working on this thing, and there have been a few changes back and forth. I believe he and I are in agreement on those changes. Those are not reflected in the development agreement in your packet. They are, for the most part, they are not monetary in nature. They are substantive, but they're more, I guess I would say, legalistic. I reviewed them. I have no problem with them. So I guess I would ask that the motion, to the extent the council were to make a motion to approve it, that you authorize me to modify the terms as long as they don't implicate the monetary provisions to my satisfaction. That would allow me some flexibility to work with Mr. Duncan to get this in final form so we can sign it before the 28th.
And Bill, I did send them the most recent version that you did give me on Monday. So they have had a chance to see at least my email version,
okay,
the most up-to-date copy.
Okay.
Mr. Duncan is here too, if anybody would like to hear from him as well.
David, would you have any comments you would like to make at this time?
No, I just want to thank again the city for all their cooperation and working through this. It's been a pleasure to work with Bill, and very, cooperative and a team partnership on this project. And we certainly understand and appreciate the timing and the deadlines that the city's up against. And so we want to do our part to make sure we get this development agreement signed up by the 28th, and then also to continue to cooperate with the city on finding additional grant proceeds that may help offset the cost of those infrastructure improvements. So we just appreciate the the commonality of our joint venture here.
And Patrick, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I did not. I'll just echo Dave's comments and appreciate everybody's cooperation and working together to make this a successful project. So thank you.
Okay, so now council members, Robin, do you have any questions you'd like to ask? Any comments you'd like to make?
I don't have anything right now.
Eileen,
No, I have no questions.
Kathy,
No questions.
Jason,
No questions.
Isaac,
Just have a quick question for Joe or Adam on the extension of the Vision Drive. Would we also be trying to put in there for the extension of Insight Drive as well and Means, or just the Vision Drive over to Ubersox Drive?
No, the intent would be to extend Vision Drive and then also make the other connections as needed to the other streets in the industry park.
Okay.
Which I think is Vision and Means and Insight.
Okay. That's it then.
Ken, any questions?
No question.
My only question today of Adam was in the wording about the road extension. And specifically, it says right now, costs incurred by the city to design, build, and construct the road improvements. I think Adam talked with Bill. I wondered if from a city standpoint, we should also include acquisition or whatever you would say of the easement to build the road, because I believe that road will be built on land that we don't necessarily control or own. And
I can respond to that. Adam did, I think, forward your request to me, Barb. It certainly is prudent, and I can talk to David about inserting that. All of that is at our cost and our obligation, so I wouldn't anticipate a problem. From a TIF perspective, we're not required to put it in the development agreement, but I see no harm in adding it. It would certainly make things more complete in their description.
right. Yeah, it really doesn't change the substance as it relates to Scanel. It really changes. I just don't want somebody to come back from the DOR or something later to say, you didn't say anything about easements.
Right.
All right, folks, do we have agreement to have a motion here? And if so, who would like to move forward with the motion? Again, talking about approving this development agreement with Scanel and authorizing the city manager to execute the sale and our attorney to finalize the wording, and also the section about the covenant exceptions being approved by the covenant committee of the industry park. I think I covered it all,
Barb, I'd make
right?
a motion to approve what you just stated.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay,
second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve what I just stated, whatever that was about this development agreement with Scanel, the covenant exceptions as approved by the covenant committee, the city manager, and to execute the agreement, and Bill to be, our attorney to be in contact with David in finalizing the wording. Okay, Candace, we'll vote.
Do you have a second? I don't know that I heard.
I second it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I think we did. We had Isaac and Kathy.
Yep, I have.
Sorry. Okay,
Okay.
Candace,
Joss,
yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Klein,
Yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And folks, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and we look forward to your partnership as we move forward during what we anticipate to be a greatly different year than 2020 in many ways. So thank you very much for attending tonight, and we'll see you sometime, hopefully.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the development agreement with Southwest Health, item D. And I suspect that this is again Joe.
Yeah, so I'll kick it off. And again, there's other folks here that have been working on this. Bill's been working on with the Southwest Health's attorney, which name is escaping me at the moment. So anyway, we did discuss this previously a little bit in the closed session, but in addition to the primary Southwest Health campus, they do own some additional land to the north and west of the hospital property, approximately 27 acres. They do have a desire to do some development on that property moving forward. Kind of a combination of uses that they've got in mind. It's kind of a fluid project at this point, but some commercial development, possibly some other medical related clinic buildings, et cetera. Some additional housing projects, both market rate as well as possibly some elderly housing, care facility, nursing home, things of that nature. So similar to the concept of beating the clock with the TID 6 we just mentioned with to leverage that Canal project and the Vision Drive extension, Southwest Health is also looking at, let's see if we can get something in place again before that deadline to allow the TIF to help recover some of the costs of the infrastructure that needs to be put in place to service that development. So the idea is that Southwest Health would be the developer of the project. It's their property. They would put in place the infrastructure to serve that development. So they would be making that financial investment in that property. But the idea that as that property then develops and there's buildings placed on that, there would be increment generated through the additional taxes from that property. So the agreement would basically authorize the city or the Southwest Health would be agreement that increment would go back to Southwest Health to pay for the costs of the infrastructure that they installed until the understanding would be until those costs are paid or TID 6 closes at whatever point in time, whichever one comes first. So again, Bill Cole has been working with House Southwest Health's attorney, trying to work on the details of that. And I believe there's been a lot of activity that's gone on since I sent this draft document to the council. But that generally is the concept. I believe Dan Rohrbach is here as well. I think I saw him on here from Southwest Health to also answer any questions that the council may have. I don't know, Adam, if you had any details that you wanted to add.
No, I think that's, Joe, I think you did a really good job kind of summarizing the intent. I think some of the things obviously that potentially could be added into this document that currently aren't there. And as we said, we're kind of against the clock. So we really wanted to get something in front of the council to review it. But as we talked about, previously with the last development agreement where we put in some language that, potentially based on if there would be additional increment that could be utilized, there's an opportunity, as we've talked about, to do some road improvements. So I think we could look at doing that. I know, Bill, we've had a couple of those conversations about, there's and Howard, I think the specific roads, but it's the ones that go specifically right next to the hospital. There's Enterprise Drive, I believe, is one that could be extended that has some impact that would be directly next to the hospital that could, benefit them or could benefit something along those lines. Potentially some other, roads that are directly off of that. So I think that's a concept we certainly could be looking at. But again, I think the key with this agreement is that, the intention would be to, with the increment, the tax increment that would be generated would be to, reimburse the hospital for their portion of obviously putting in the infrastructure up into the percent that they would be made whole. And then, anything additional would go into the TIF to be utilized for, potential project costs, et cetera. So I guess, Bill, is there anything else you think we're missing or you want to bring up?
Well, you summarized, I think, the nature of the project well. A couple things I guess I would point out, and we have Doug Buck is the attorney for the hospital. He's online as well, so he can certainly answer questions too. The thing I think that is most unusual about this, and the reality of it is we're sort of scrambling to beat your expenditure period. We know it's closing and the hospital came forward with this development. But the unusual thing about this development, I think it's one that you should give some serious thought to, is there's no obligation on the part of the hospital to build it. There's no deadline as to when they would complete it if they built it, and there's no obligation for them to build to any specific value. So it really is an option for the hospital to do it if it so chooses, and to do it at the level it so chooses. This agreement is very unusual that way. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to the hospital at all. I think they're scrambling to beat our deadline when their project hasn't been developed enough for them to have specifics that way. The reason I think the council should give some serious thought to this, though, is depending on the timing of it, if you would be effectively giving them now a coupon for if they were to develop it, you would pay up to $2.5 million in pay as they go grants to reimburse them for the cost of those developments. You would be paying that as proposed by them at a 100% level, meaning every dollar that comes in on an incremental basis would go toward back to them for reimbursement. The reason this gets somewhat tricky here is this TID is going to close in about 5 years. If they say they complete it in 3 years, you're really only going to have 2 years on this TID to recoup any expenditure. After that, the district defeases and all of it goes back on the tax roll, which is wonderful for the community at large, but the TIF district cannot capture, won't have a long enough time to capture that, the $2.4 million expenditure. I know you have a closed session tonight for economic development. I think it would probably behoove the council to hear from the applicant tonight, but then to also have some further discussion tonight in closed session as to these issues and sort of the consequences to the city, the options to the city, and giving myself and Adam some authority to negotiate with the applicant on those issues.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Go ahead,
This is
Dan.
Dan.
Yes,
I guess I got a question when you advise the council on the risk that the city is taking. They're not taking any risk. I mean, they're not putting any funds forward. So can you clarify what risk you're talking about with the council of this?
Well, they would be correct. They wouldn't be, they're not paying any money until they're receiving the taxes. That is true. But I guess it's more the lost opportunity cost of being able to recoup all of your 2.5 million or whatever amount for a much longer period of time. For instance,
Right. Right. So I agree with you 100%, but that's the hospital's risk because it's our money. It's not.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's not a risk to us as much as it's a lost opportunity. That's fair. I have Doug Buck is here too. I don't know, Doug, if you want to comment at all or answer any questions the council may have.
Well, I'll just add along the lines of what Dan was saying, that since this is a pay-go, the plan as it currently is proposed is that the hospital would build this public street pursuant to a separate development agreement with the city, which would have all the specifications about bidding and the size of the road and how the curbs look and all the details that the city wants for the road. Then the hospital will go out and pay for the road and build the road. And it's only receiving funds from the TID once it creates new buildings that generate taxes. So there, it is, Bill is totally correct. It is unusual that there's no project start date here and there's no commitment to increment. But I think that is because of what Bill was saying. You folks are, we couldn't put this in another district because you're at your 12% cap already. So we got to use the district we got. It's closing here promptly. But there is, you know, for the city itself, since this is a pay-go, the real person that will be stuck holding the bag if this doesn't
It's the hospital. Southwest Health.
is the hospital.
Joe, let me ask the question, or Adam. The last time to incur project costs for this TIF is within this month. Let's just put it that way. What's the closure date for this TIF? What year? Does somebody know? Dan, Adam, Joel?
It'd be 5 years after that. So
Over to Nicola, because I know she's the finance girl. I know the answer, but I'm gonna let her give it.
Well, we don't need to fight over it. The Joint Review Board did approve an extension, the standard extension to the TID, so it now is extended to 2029. And there is a possibility of a further extension that could be requested of the Joint Review Board for a second time, and that is the technical college extension.
Okay.
If that was granted, it would be another 3 years beyond the 2029.
So right now it would be 7 years.
Correct.
Basically, and it could be as many as 10 if the second extension were granted. Okay, and my understanding is the increment that's generated has to be generated within this. I mean, there's no payment after the TIF closes, right? The increment stops when the TIF closes.
Correct.
The increment stops, and then if one of the attorneys could speak to, my understanding is that when the TID closes, even if the 2.5 was not reimbursed at that point, the TID and the city would be under no obligation to continue to reimburse.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's correct. Okay.
Another point I just wanted to make that may be helpful and may be stating the obvious is that, again, my understanding is that the TID's obligation to reimburse is only based on increment that is generated by the hospital project itself, no other increment from any other project within the TID.
Is that the understanding that we have, Mr. Buck and Mr. Cole?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so the increment would be generated by buildings put up or development by Southwest Health, and then paid back with their full knowledge that currently the TID is scheduled to close in 2029 with the possibility of extending to 2032, I guess. I can't even say that number. So like a long way away, 2032 seems. Okay, Robin, questions?
I'm not sure if this gets discussed here. I'm curious about the motivation to build in order of nonprofit versus commercial properties or residential properties. And if that, I don't know, if you can speak to that in the order of how you would be bringing funds in or out, I guess. I have some interest as to when our city prioritizes non-tax generating entities and maybe some interest that this would occur in that development, but I don't know how it all gets balanced. I don't know if that's making sense, but.
I think I understand your question, Robin. And I think back to Bill's point, you know, we don't have any concrete plans on this yet. We do have some ideas, and like I mentioned at the last closed session we had, this is we're not developers, and we really we're looking at this as opportunity of why we bought the land a few years ago. And when Adam and I found out this was, or maybe when I found out, Adam maybe knew, but this was in a TIF, I thought, well, here could be the idea to get this off the ground. And really, to be honest with you, it's going to help the city. I mean, they're certainly going to help us in the healthcare community as well. But for us to put up $2.5 million worth of risk with only 7 years left and hopefully 10, it's a huge risk for us. And if we know we're going to have the opportunity to, if this thing does take off and we get some development in there over the next couple of years, we get a little bit of that risk back. We're willing to do that because the city is going to get all of that revenue after it's done, and didn't have to put a single penny forward. So the idea of lost opportunity, I'm not really sure. It's generating about $300 a year in ag taxes right now. So there's really not much lost opportunity from a standpoint of either party. It can just continue to be farmed. But this might be enough for us to, our board approved this earlier in the week, or I'm sorry, late last week, to move forward with the development agreement, in the idea that Bill's right. I mean, this is just getting it in place in case we do something. There's no deadlines that we have to. There's no deadlines of what we're going to do because we don't know that yet. But if we do decide to move forward, this is a big decision point that our board will look at to say, hey, let's do this. Let's take the risk. The hospital has the ability to do that, and we can get maybe a few of these dollars back. If this was a 20-year TIF yet, and there's lots of time, I think that's where we could look at potentially, maybe it's a 90-10 or an 80-20 type split between the city and the hospital. But, there's no way we're going to get $2.5 million with infrastructure back. There's just no way. There's not enough time. But if we can get, a few $100,000, $500,000 maybe, I mean, we'd be happy with that. So I think to answer your question, we really don't know. We don't have any concrete plans to build anything yet, but this will, and again, if we had more time, we could maybe get further down the road and then do this, but we just don't have the time to make those decisions right now.
Well, and I'll just follow up on what Dan was saying. This might get to your question too. Obviously, as a community, you have a decision. We have this tool, it's TIF. We can offer incentives. Do we give it to private people? Do we give it to nonprofits? If the nonprofit doesn't generate increment, it can't get TIF. What you've got here is a hospital. It's a nonprofit in your community. You're given an opportunity to support it. And they're talking about development that is accretive to their mission. They want medical office building. They want senior housing that's near the hospital, maybe some affordable housing, workforce housing. So I think what you would be supporting is the hospital in creating a community that, or an area that helps them with their mission.
Okay, Robin, you got it? I see you're muted, so we're going to assume you're done.
Good. Thank you.
I guess just a clarification from Bill, because this is on just for information, but we'll be discussing it maybe a little further. So that's what will happen in the closed session.
No, this isn't on for information. It's on for action.
Well, okay, I'm confused by that then, Bill, because you said something about discussing this in closed session.
Well,
but this is action.
Yeah, it's on for action right now. There are, this has been a very sort of seat of our pants, sort of everybody moving very quickly. And, we really haven't had a chance to sit down and discuss the terms with the developer. The one thing that I need guidance on, if the council is inclined to do so, the biggest factor is the amount of the TIF reimbursement. As I say, right now, as proposed, it's 100%, meaning every dollar that comes in increment to the city, that entire dollar would get paid in reimbursement to the hospital. That's a bit unusual from a TIF standpoint. It's not unheard of. Most communities, it will be a certain split, a certain percentage that is negotiated with the developer. The hospital's representative makes a very good point, and I don't mean to sugarcoat it at all. This is very unusual in that the recoupment period for the hospital is very short. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to say that their request for 100% pay-go is unreasonable. It could be, based on the short recoupment period. But that's something that if we are going to negotiate that, I would need some direction and authority from the council, and closed session would be the place to do that. If the council is fine with paying at the 100% level, I don't think we need to go into closed session. You could vote to approve it as it's presented, and we could go forward. That's the reason I had suggested closed session, because I don't want to, if the council is inclined to go at less than 100%, I need direction as to what level the council wants.
Okay, and I guess that was my question. I mean, obviously, I think it's a great project, and I appreciate the Southwest Health, working with us to try to accomplish something like this. But as far as the actual development agreement, then, I mean, there's a development agreement with some fine tuning, is what I'm hearing you say.
I would say if, depending on the council's position tonight, if the council would like me to negotiate the percentage of the TIF, I think we could do that in very short order and probably be able to complete it before the 28th. Additionally, there is some minor modifications I think we need to work through, similar to the Scannell agreement. Nothing that I would say is monetary or significant for the city, but we would need to finalize the document and the terms there. So I would, to the extent the council is going to approve it tonight, I would ask that there be some degree of authority given to me to vary the language from what's presented to you tonight to accommodate any further discussions I might have with Mr. Buck.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think to add on to Bill's point, I think that's one of the things that as the city manager, I would be looking for too, is as we've talked about, typically with any development agreement, my comfort level is, again, you guys are the elected officials who have to make the decision on a development agreement. So we're running into, again, with this time frame and trying to do something that really is truly an amazing development that has some great impacts on the city and a great partnership here with the hospital. But normally, as kind of Bill indicated, we would like to bring you a more finalized and fine-tuned version that we, have definitely made sure we've dotted the T's and crossed the I's. So in this instance, what we'd be looking for is if the council is comfortable with the general guidelines of what you've seen in this development agreement, to essentially give both Bill and I some of the leeway to be able to, finalize a lot of those options. So, the motion would essentially be to entering into a development agreement with the city manager and obviously the city attorney ensuring and finalizing that document.
Kathy.
I think I'm grasping everything that is being discussed, but basically we're looking to the council tonight to vote on the city entering into a developer's agreement with Southwest Health. I would be comfortable doing that, giving city manager, the attorneys, the flexibility to work out the details. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right.
That's kind of where we are.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Ken.
if I could just jump in on behalf of the, this is Doug Buck.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Wave at me when you're going to speak. Otherwise, I can't figure it out when everybody's got their microphone on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think what your council member just said is correct, and I think I speak for the hospital when we say we would like the motion to be the 100% reimbursement, so that we could just work out, and we've worked very well with the city attorney, we can work out the details from there.
Okay, Ken.
Well, I'm in agreement, and I think city manager, city attorney can work out more of the fine details. That would be suitable to me. Thank you.
Isaac.
Excuse me. So I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So the developers agreement that we're doing tonight with the hospital, or possibly doing, would just be for the streets and the infrastructure. Any basic kind of like a planned unit development or anything like that. In fact, there would still have to be another agreement for those projects, right, Adam or Joe?
Yes, and in fact, Joe, isn't it true that the development agreement, that this development agreement speaks to the creation of, I'm going to call sub-development agreements that would be bidding for roads or, and those kinds of things, and actually says, I think I read in the developer's agreement that it would be built to city specifications. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of view this really almost more of a financing agreement between the city and Southwest Health, and then the additional agreements would be approved as needed if, you know, to address the development details, the actual construction details, any zoning approvals would be in addition to this, would have to come later. But I think this really sets the parameters of having the TID, you know, reimburse the Southwest Health for their infrastructure improvements.
All right, I just want to make sure I was reading that right, and that's exactly what I thought it was. So I'd be same with what Ken, Kathy, and Eileen had stated that, you know, I'd be in favor of approving this developers agreement between the city and the hospital, as long as the city administrator, city attorney, and the other attorneys have the authority to work out the final details, you know, afterwards.
Jason,
The only other clarification that I have is, so if we approve this tonight, that means we're also agreeing to the 100% reimbursement. Like, there wouldn't be any negotiation with that. Is that part of that as well?
Joe?
Well, right now, that's what is proposed by the hospital. If you were to approve it now in open session, yes, that's what the proposal before you is. If you would prefer to discuss that in closed session, we certainly can, and we can discuss it further, and you can decide to still pay him the 100,000 or something less and give me some authority.
100%.
Right now, what would be before you would be at the 100% level.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Joe, other TIDs where we've done a pay-go, have those been at the 100% level, or where have they been? Do you know? Howard, Joe, somebody?
The big one was TID 5, where Menards Walmart was, if you recall, that was essentially a similar project that was privately owned property. All the infrastructure was put in by the developer. And then the TID was used to pay back their infrastructure costs. I don't know for certain if that was 100%, but my memory tells me that it was. I don't know if Howard has any recollection of that.
I think you may be right. I know that the Ubersox development now, Coombs Country, was less than 100%, and I thought that the Emmy was 100% as well. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Ubersox one was negotiated to be less than 100%.
But the big development on the north side of 151 was 100, was pretty. Eileen, you were on the council. Ken, you were on the council during that time. Can we use your memories?
Oh,
No? Is that what Ken said? Eileen?
Yes, my memory is it was probably 100%. I think the question here is that there's a kind of, should we go with the 100%? Because we still have some questions perhaps about the kind of development and whether or not there's the possibility of even getting enough increment to go 100%. And so I'm not sure if the motion should be something about agreeing to the developers agreement, but then again, with the city manager and our attorney having the opportunity to discuss further with the hospital, but the hospital seems to want the 100%, so.
Well, I think I can speak to that too, Eileen. And again, I guess I'm not a developer, so don't criticize me for asking for 100% from the standpoint of we're putting in 100% of the money. We're not asking the city to put anything. So when we're asking for some reimbursement back, which we know we're not going to get all of it, it's not like this is an 80-20 split between we're putting in 80% of the 2.5 million, the city's putting in 20%, we're splitting the increment. We're putting in 100% of the money. And so, for a nonprofit organization to step up and say, we're going to help the community out with the development and foot 100% of the bill, but the city to ask for partial of that increment back, I just don't understand that. But I'm not a developer, so, again, don't criticize me for that, but it doesn't, to me, that doesn't really make any sense.
I think that there may also be a bit of confusion. It's not necessarily that Southwest Health would get 2.4 million. It's 100% of the increment generated during that year. And then it would be 100% of the increment that would be generated over 7 years. My understanding is, and if that increment, if there's no development during the first year and no development during the second year or whatever, that the time to recoup that 2.5 is going to shrink down. And so it's going to require either a larger investment in buildings, which will generate increment, which will assess and generate increment, or there won't be increment. So I think there's a difference here between, and I'm hopeful that the document doesn't say we're going to pay 2.5 million, but that we're going to pay 100% of the increment generated by the development during the life of the TID. And if the infrastructure costs 3 million and there's only 1 million of increment generated, then Dan's right, the risk falls to the hospital or to Southwest Health, because they're not going to get part of that initial investment back. Now, do I understand this development agreement to be that way? Am I?
Yes, you're correct.
That's correct.
They will get 100% of the increment as it comes in, but it's by no means 100% of the 2.5 million. It could be if there's a long enough time, but you are correct.
It could be if there's a long enough time, and it could be if there's significant assessed value. So Robin, if the buildings built are owned by nonprofits, they don't generate increment. So, I don't, and in terms of personally, in terms of looking at this development, I know that I'm going to call it undefined, but I'm also going to say that the track record that Southwest Health has, and the fact that they're going to try to generate increment to pay back some of that infrastructure, means that whatever they put on this land is going to be some kind of quality product. They're not going to, I don't know. They're not going to put up teepees or wigwams or something. I don't know. They're going to put up something that's going to generate increment.
Barb, I think the pay-go statement might be confusing a couple people, because it's not pay as you go, because there is a difference between, as you put it in, you get it back. This is, you're going to put it in and hope we get some of it back. So I think that's kind of some part of the confusion on there. So.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I can probably try to add a little bit to because I would agree. So again, I think with most development agreements, as we talked about, when you have the ability to truly flesh them out and have a full plan, as Dan kind of indicated, we would have a defined deadline times, we would be expecting in 2 years, it's going to be the increment. Well, the plan with this, obviously, again, is, we're looking at, this is a bit of a unique one, because we have the developer, essentially, which is the hospital, is willing to upfront the majority of the cost, to put in the infrastructure. So I think with this, what we're going to be looking at as we go forward is any building, any further construction that they do is still going to have to go through the various committees. So it's going to have to go to the planning committee. It's going to have to go through the council again, with site plan and site approvals. So that's where this whole process is going to be working through. And again, as we've talked about, the increment that is generated, it's pay as you go is the process, but it truly is going to be dependent on, how fast the hospital wants to go. I think as we've talked about, they understand, this is about right now, we for sure have 7 years that this TIF is still in existence. So that's going to be the cost benefit analysis for the hospital, is to determine, okay, well, they know with their plan, they're looking at about $2.4 million of infrastructure. What type of, construction and projects can they do that is going to generate, tax base, as Dan and the attorney indicated, that is going to be in their best interest to attempt to recoup some of those costs. And I think the advantage for the city is that, this truly is whatever they're developing is what potentially they're going to be getting back. So it's fully dependent on this project. It's not requiring the TIF itself to supplement, it's not requiring other developments in the TIF to pay for this project. This project is being 100% funded by the increment that is coming in for whatever the hospital develops.
Okay, folks, additional questions. Where do we stand? I personally am comfortable with the 100% based on our past experience and based on the length of time that this TID remains open. If they can generate $2.4 million in 7 years, I think it's going to be quite amazing and quite, I'm going to say, quite a benefit to our community.
Barb, I agree with that. And I also want to reiterate that I think it's extremely unusual that we have had a nonprofit come forward to even look and consider a project like this. And I agree. I think at this point, I'm comfortable with entering into developers agreement at the 100%. And a large part of that is because I think between the city manager and the attorneys, we have a really good, solid crew. And you combine that with the reputation of Southwest Health, I feel that it's a tremendous opportunity. It can definitely be a win-win. And no matter how it works out, if Southwest Health is able to move forward and get any kind of development, it's probably going to be bringing jobs, which is going to help the community, help the schools. So there's a lot of side benefits that way too.
Anybody else? Isaac?
I would agree with you, Barb. I'd be comfortable with that, given the short amount of time. And again, as you stated, if they can generate over $2 million in recoupment back in that amount of time, that's gonna be quite the feat, and I'd like to see it happen.
Eileen?
No, I concur.
Jason?
I'm in agreement with what everyone else has been saying.
Ken?
Yes, I stated my support previously, and I assume what you're talking about is sort of like I've heard it said here, pay as you go. In other words, you're going to pay the increments that come in.
Yep. Robin?
I'm pretty comfortable with this. I feel like it was a nice, thorough conversation, and it's really exciting. I hope it comes to fruition, and I hope we can make it smooth sailing as projects come forward. Assuming the hospital's in favor of sidewalks, we'll see a development with sidewalks. So.
Oh, here we go, sidewalks, Dan. Okay, so my understanding is that a motion would be in order to approve not the development agreement, but to approve entering into a development agreement with Southwest Health, with our city manager, Adam, and our city attorney, Bill Cole, working through the final wording and details with Southwest Health and their attorney, Mr. Buck. Am I right about the type of motion we need, Adam?
I believe that's correct, Bill. Is there anything that we're missing there?
That's fine.
Okay,
I will make that motion, Barb.
okay. As I said, huh? Thank you. All right. Do we have
I'd
we have a
second that.
motion? We have a motion by Kathy and a second by several people, but I heard Isaac. So we'll say a motion by Kathy and a second by Isaac. And with that, Candace, wherever you are, will vote.
I'm still here. Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein,
Yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Mr. Buck, for joining us tonight. Of course, you're welcome to stay, and we certainly look forward to further development of your plans and to the final developers agreement.
I think I heard a challenge from Isaac for me to get $2.5 million infrastructure in the next 7 years. So I'm going to get to work.
There you go.
Get going.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think definitely Dan,
Thank
both
you.
the attorney, we appreciate that. Bill, I'm sure we're going to be talking here in the next couple of days. So
And is Bill staying on for further discussion tonight?
he does not have to. So
Okay, so he doesn't have to be at a closed session?
no, he does not.
Oh, okay. Well, Bill, thank you for joining us. Of course, you're welcome to stay, as I'm sure there's nothing else for you to do on a Tuesday night.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good night, everybody.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move into the information and discussion portion of our agenda. First, we have contract 7-21, street maintenance. And for this, we are going to go to, I suspect, Howard.
Okay, thank you. This is our annual thin overlay contract, and like we did last year, the plan would be to do the mill and overlay on Main Street from Washington Street down to Stonebridge. We opened up our one bid, Iverson Construction. We actually got a pretty decent bid considering fuel prices lately. Right now, we would be able to do all but one block of Lutheran Street and be just $2,000 over our budget. We do have budget available from the Dewey Street project. If you wanted to add that last block of Lutheran Street in, that would certainly be within the overall budget authority. So I would end up recommending that we award the bid to Iverson Construction, either with or without that last block of Lutheran.
Okay, so my understanding is by not awarding the sidewalk of I don't know where we stand with your, I'd have to go back to my spreadsheet. This part of the contract, the Lutheran, that one block is $12,352.34. Is that correct?
Yes, so essentially, you could say that this would, that not doing option D on Dewey Street would end up paying for this.
Although we just spent part of that money on Deborah Court.
Well, Deborah Court, I had included, that was within the overall budget authority, even if we had included alternate D on Dewey Street. So that's all balanced in there. I'll show it to you on the next council meeting, but we do have the budget ability to include that last block.
Okay, folks, any questions, Robin? Eileen?
No question.
Kathy?
No questions.
Ken?
no,
Isaac?
No questions.
Jason?
No.
Okay, Howard, bring your spreadsheet the next time. Show us if and how we might pay. And council members, take a look at the list and think about whether you want to spend that money, that $12,000 to do the thin overlay on that portion of that block of Lutheran Street that had been eliminated. All right, now I've lost my agenda, so now we'll find it. Okay. Let's go on to item B under information and discussion, contract 1221, the Sanders Shrine Pickleball Complex and Tennis Court resurfacing. And Luke, I believe this one is yours.
Yeah, I can get us started at least. So with this project, it has gone out for bid and we did have 3 responsive bidders. The low was Owens Excavating with a low bid on the base project of $248,000, 284, or I'm sorry, I can't even say the number, $248,284.50 for the base bid. There were 11 alternates as a part of that bid, but however you added up, selecting any of or rejecting all the alternates, Owens Excavating would still end up as the low bidder for the project. After reviewing the project with Papa, Papa has selected 9 of the 11 alternate bids that they would like to include. The bids they would not like to include in the contract would be alternate E, which is windscreens, and alternate K, which is the vinyl coating on the fence. The other 9, I can go over in more detail as we get into questions, but they would like to accept, which would bring the grand total of that project to $368,764, including the base bid and the alternate costs or alternate bids.
What, Luke, how much was that?
$364,764.
364. Okay.
So included in the base bid was our tennis court resurface project. It was decided to bid that out as a part of this project in the hopes that in both projects that need to have that seal coat or the equipment come in, that there'd be a lower mobilization charge for both groups in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, that bid did come in higher than we had originally budgeted. I attribute that mostly to just the material cost of things going up, but it did exceed our $25,000 budget, and that bid came in at $20,965. Also included in there, we did have some, what I would consider above and beyond making us whole at the ice rink. So we discussed with Platteville Youth Diamond Sports and our ice rink volunteers and tried to attribute what items were making us better than whole there, and decided to attribute a portion of that to Youth Diamond Sports, as this will allow them to utilize the essentially the area that the ice rink is going as a small baseball field, which was part of our comprehensive plan. So the city has agreed, or through talks with Adam, to take on a portion amount. And then the city's original money of $50,000 was also included in there in our, it's kind of subtracted for what Papa owes. So speaking of Papa, they have done a fantastic job fundraising to date, and their current fundraising has brought in $237,765 to date, which would make, combined with those city funds that I had mentioned, the city has raised a grand total, or the city and Papa has raised a grand total of $328,147, which originally is short of our goal or our bid or our expenses. And we were going to come to the city asking for additional funding. Papa had made that request. However, just today, we had 2 other entities approach us and say they were willing to guarantee some additional funding to the city to allow us to sign the contracts without asking for additional funding from the city at this time. One of those donors had agreed to guarantee $35,000, and the other donor had agreed to guarantee $7,940, which actually puts the difference between our projected expenses and total revenue in excess of $2,323. And I know that's a lot of numbers. I know I had to send 2 supplemental emails today because there was a lot of numbers coming into me very, very quickly. But I hope you've had a chance to review that second spreadsheet, because I know if you're like me, hearing big numbers is hard to follow versus following them on paper.
Okay, Luke, I have clarification. I do have a question again for clarification.
Sure.
In our packet today, it says the contract award is $348,360. And you have said 364,000 something. So
Yes, I can explain it. Yeah. So the difference in there is the engineering fees, which we have committed to Delta Engineering. So the engineering fees, which are not included in the contract, are $2,404. So that represents that difference between what was in your packet and what was what I presented now.
how much, you cut out when you said how much the engineering fee was.
I'll try again. 20,404.
Okay, but that would not be in the Owens contract.
That would not be in the Owens contract, but that is what we know we're going to owe that amount for sure.
Right. I understand, you know, that you're good. But if we're looking at the contract for the contract itself is 348,360.
Sure.
Right. Okay. Okay. I know that there are several pickleball players on. No one has asked to speak. So I guess, Robin, do you have questions?
I don't have any questions right now.
Eileen, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Kathy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Luke, can you just clarify the bid for the tennis courts came in over? Where is that overage coming from then?
So generally what we do with CIP items is wait until all our CIP items see where we're at, in hopes that, you know, our hope is one of our other CIP items this year is going to come in lower and we'll be able to utilize that to supplement this. If not, my suggestion would be to pull money from the Owens or the Clayton Trust, which can only be used at Smith and Legion Park to help cover that difference. But yes, it did come in higher than our anticipated budget.
So Luke, if those funds from the Clayton can only be used at Smith and Legion Park, how are you going to resurface tennis courts at Westview?
Yes, that won't work. I apologize that the Cyril Clayton Trust is the one we can utilize for that. The Orlo Clayton Trust is the other one. I jumped from one to the other, but unfortunately there's a difference of one letter in there which changes the definition, but one is able to use and one is not.
Okay.
Okay.
So he has a source of funding, and the amount for the tennis that you've agreed to for the ice rink, where does that money come from?
Sure.
That's not budgeted either.
So that would ideally come from our outfield, which there's money that comes in from our baseball, softball sign programming, which could be utilized for that.
So what did you, again, you cut out, so I can see confusion on the faces of people. So your outfield what?
Our outfield advertising signs.
Okay, outfield advertising signs. So those signs we see up around the outside of the fields, that's where you would cover that money.
So currently there is about $52,000 in that account, which is held over annually because it is a trust account that could be utilized to help cover some of these expenses. Again, our goal with the pickleball group was to try to allocate basically to make us whole with the ice rink, but there was some expansion and some additions in there that we felt it would make sense to do at this time while we're having the excavators there. That would also benefit our baseball, softball programming. And I'd go so far as to say to benefit many of our other, you know, programs such as, you know, Dairy Days even is going to be using that area for parking for the truck and tractor pull. So just creating it essentially as large of flat space as possible in that area, which again, we thought was above and beyond what should be attributed to Papa to make us whole.
Okay.
Okay,
Kathy?
Barbara did have something else. So just to clarify, the Luke, the alternate H for the yard hydrant is for the ice rink?
No, the ice rink actually has a full hydrant going in, which came in at about $10,000. That is included in the base bid. Alternate H would be a yard hydrant, which is essentially a hose hookup to allow to hook up equipment to clean the tennis courts, fill water bottles. And I would point out that that will also benefit our horseshoe group, who's would prefer to have a hookup closer to their area as well. So I'm happy to see that is added by Pickleball, and hopefully we can negotiate that into some use of their shed by Pickleball to, as kind of a reciprocal cooperation.
Okay.
Okay, and you meant cleaning the pickleball courts, not the tennis courts.
I did, yes.
And then I just want to make a comment. I see the alternate E and alternate J were not selected. I just want to make a comment that I have spoken to 2 donors of the Brodsky Center that are going to be quite happy that windscreen and the vinyl fence is not going to be installed. The concern was the aesthetics from the street to the Brodsky Center. So just
unfortunately, I have likely bad news for you in that it's not included in the contract, but I do believe it would still be important to our pickleball windscreen up, as it would help make playability much more possible. The reason it wasn't selected as part of the contract is I believe they felt they could do that easier on their own instead of paying for someone else to install it and paying an upcharge.
So there will be a mesh fence, is there? And the other thing that I have heard from a couple of different people about, and I just like clarification, is there a plan to put donor signage on that fence, like around the softball field, the baseball fields, those big signs?
Yeah. I haven't heard anything about a signage of that nature,
Okay.
nor do I think that is the intent. I would expect a small donor plaque outlining who donate, for the courts are named. Okay. So I would anticipate something small, but I wouldn't anticipate anything large, nor do I think that's designed into our fence bid, a fence that would be able to handle that additional wind thrust of those larger signs.
Okay, so are the wind screens, is that something that would be up all the time, or is that something that would be up when it was needed?
Sure. Traditionally, they're left up all the time. If you put some stipulations that you wanted them off in the winter for some reason, I certainly don't think the group would have a problem with that, but just typically they're labor intensive to take up and put down. So traditionally the ones at the tennis courts are left up year round.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, Kathy?
No.
Okay, Ken, questions?
No question.
Isaac, any questions?
No question, but I just have a couple comments. I live right across the street from where this is going to be taking place and put on here, and I'm actually all in favor of the project. The 8-foot windscreen, I've seen those before. I'm not really opposed to those if they were to come up. I wouldn't mind seeing something put in there that, when the weather permits not being used, that they do come down for the remainder of the winter until the springtime. I am happy to see that the vinyl coated fence hopefully is not going to be put on. I do see those getting look tacky after time, and actually kind of does block the view of seeing what you want to play. So I would like to see that those not be on, but no problem with the windscreen as long as maybe we don't have to, but put a stipulation on there during winter months of not use that they do come down. And it would also extend the use and the life of those windscreens if they're not during the winter as well. So.
Yep. Jason, any questions, comments?
Nope.
6. I think that's it then. I don't have any comments either, so we'll put this on for action at the next meeting. Thank you, Luke, and thank you, pickleball players, for the work that you've done on this. And yeah, action will be at our meeting on April 13th. I'm not sure. I think that's the second Tuesday in April. So let's move on then to item C on information and discussion, and that is the Platteville Municipal Airport CIP project. And this is,
That's me.
it's you.
It's me. I'll take that one. I see Elaine is on here too, obviously from the airport. She's been patiently listening to everything going on, but this is more just, again, another kind of information update and topic as we continue to kind of work through this. So as we kind of kicked off last week, or last meeting, we kind of brought this idea to you that this is what the Airport Commission has been working on. So the Airport Commission has been looking at getting approval to essentially construct new T hangars or box hangars, obviously at the municipal airport. So one of the things, and Elaine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still waiting to hear, I think, from the board, the BOA, the Board of Aeronautics, I remember correctly, on whether or not we can, they're looking at certain designs that they can do potentially in regards to where the T hangars could be located, if they can get an exception. But essentially what is before the council, what the Airport Commission has been talking about, is looking to fund about a $725,000 project. Now how that would be funded is, as we've talked about, is the airport gets future FAA entitlement allocations. And actually for the past couple of years, they have been, almost reserving some of these allocations. So there is currently a fund balance that is with the airport for the allocations that they have, but over the course of the next few years, they would be getting about $150,000 in allocation, and that they would be able to utilize towards this project. So essentially what they're looking for, what the Airport Commission is looking for, is authorization for city staff to work with the Airport Commission and potentially a local bank to enter into a revenue anticipation note that would not exceed $725,000. So what I did is I actually spoke with, reviewed everything with our financial kind of managers and operations and Nicola, as well as talking to our advisors. And this would be eligible for it wouldn't be a revenue bond, it would be a note, just because of the amount of years we would be paying this back would only be about 4 years, between 4 and 5 years. So what we would be able to do is we would be able to go to a local bank or ask local banks to enter into a potential note to cover this cost. What the city would be, their obligation would be, as we've talked about in our capital improvement plan, we have allocated $15,000 a year to go towards CIP related projects for the municipal airport. So the understanding would be that if this would be approved by the council, this would essentially be locking in our CIP, that there would be $15,000 over the next kind of 4 years as kind of is the anticipated payback for this loan that would be specifically used to cover this cost. Now, obviously, that would be the amount of money then that would be utilized. So there wouldn't be any additional current funding within the CIP unless there would be an ask from the airport and the council would choose to provide something above 15,000. But essentially, we would be earmarking that amount. So I did provide, just as an informational update, a quick, rough numbers of what potentially a loan would look like using the, the FAA allotments that have been provided, as well as the city's match to showcase that, potentially we would have this particular note would be paid off by 2024. The reason to go after a municipal anticipation note is that that does not have any impact against the city's ability of geo borrowing. So this does not impact our debt limit. So because of that, and because we have a guaranteed revenue source with the FAA entitlements, that still allows the city to look at borrowing, the normal amount of money that we have put into our financial operation plan for all of our normal CIP projects, our streets, our repairs. So this does not impact that, or if the city would find a need that they would need to borrow additional funds for some reason, it does not impact our debt limit. So that's just kind of the quick update again of this project. I guess, Elaine, is there anything I missed?
No, I don't think so. We continue to get good news from the Bureau of Aeronautics. Because our airport is so active and so growing, they're always helping us with extra funding. I just got an update. Our starting entitlement is actually quite a bit higher than we anticipated. We already have $350,000 worth of entitlements we can put towards this project. which is good news. And there's a second CARES Act going through that is going to provide us with an additional 13,000. So I think if we keep pushing forward and taking advantage of the great momentum we have at the airport, that this will quickly be built and paid off very easily.
Okay, council questions. Robin,
I do not have any questions.
Eileen,
No questions.
Kathy,
No questions.
Ken,
No questions. I appreciate the work of the staff,
Isaac.
especially city manager.
Okay, Isaac,
No questions.
Jason.
No questions.
My only question, Elaine, is when do you think you're going to hear back on your question to the BOA? Or to FAA, whoever did it?
Right. We actually think we have a solution that allows us to not have to pursue the special approval we needed for essentially taxiway clearance areas to account for, certain wingspans of aircraft. We just kind of switched things around a little bit. And I think we're able to essentially get a box hangar and the T hangars that we want. They'll just be in slightly different locations, which satisfies the current design standards that the FAA sets forth, which allows us to hopefully go to bid in May, which if that's the case, if everything works out, we would start construction this fall.
And you're still anticipating a $725,000 budget?
Yeah, we'll see. The goal is to have a base bid that will probably quite easily match that budgeted amount with a couple of alternates and then make a decision from there so that we have options.
All right. That's I guess we're moving on then to, that'll be, I guess it won't be on for action next time unless there's a more defined plan, right, Adam? Because right now the plan is 725.
That would be the question, I guess, for Elaine in the airport is, would the intention that you would need the council to approve something at the April 13th meeting so that you're meeting everything? Or is there the ability to, I guess, wait till you have a finalized answer?
Sure. So, we're going to continue to move forward with the design on our part. We won't know how the project fits into our budget until bids come back. But I do know that the Bureau wants to have a guaranteed revenue source for this hangar before we move forward. So knowing how we would fund it, I think is pretty important. And if that could be decided even the next meeting, that'd be very helpful for us.
How it's funded sometimes depends on how much funding you need. So right now,
Sure.
we're comfortable with 725 as presented. If that went to 1.5 million, it might be a different.
Sure. I think there's a chance that we would prefer to get the most we could. We are, like I had mentioned, I think we're going to come into this project with a lot more entitlements than originally expected. I would expect it to be between 750 to no more than 1 million total with the base bid, and then that including the alternates. So based on the entitlements we have right now, the total loan amount would be around 600,000 if we were to go with the highest bid, or essentially the most, I don't want to say the highest bid, if we were to choose to bid the alternates that got bid with the project.
And Adam, do I look at it that you have said the amount that your spreadsheet shows is 425,000?
So, yeah, the way that I looked at the spreadsheet, and I think I looked at the last kind of information we had, Elaine, was showing that as of 2021, I think the total entitlement amount was about 285,000. So as you indicated, it's now more. And then looking at, I think 2022, 2023, and 2024 was getting an additional $150,000 in each of those years. So that brought, the total, if we were looking at a $725,000 note, when you account, debt service, everything else, all the fees, you'd be looking at, we'd be going after about a $485,000 loan. which would cover, the 725 when you minus off your portion plus the city's. So then that puts a yearly payment of about $111,852 that we'd be paying off. So I think that would be the question that obviously Nicola and I would have to look at is, the council has to approve a specific or allow us to enter into a specific loan amount. And then we would go from there.
Right, sure. I think that the numbers you and Nicola have right now would be the most that we would need. To be completely honest, we're working pretty diligently with the Bureau right now to get an extra $100,000 for our snow removal equipment, which we already had budgeted, which will make our pot go up another 100,000. Based on what you're budgeting and what I know we have today, the amount that you're expecting, Adam, with your data for the loan, I think would be the most that we would need.
Okay. All right. So if the spreadsheet, Nicola and Adam, you can work that out, and we will put it then on for action at the April 13th.
Sure.
Okay. City of Platteville mission statement.
Okay, so this is kind of our continual, this will be on for discussion obviously multiple times, so this isn't the last time you'll see this, but one of the things that's in our strategic plan is to talk about, the mission statement and kind of what we want to do with that. What do we want our official mission statement to be? So as you'll see in the document, again, I provide a couple of different examples of what other municipalities have done. As you'll see, they kind of run the gamut. Some of them are very short and to the point, and some of them are very extensive, and some of them have multiple other belief statements, value statements, et cetera, whatever you want to call it. So just trying to narrow down what makes the most sense for the city is, we have had obviously a vision statement that was created in 2013 out of our comprehensive plan. So there's a question of if, as the council obviously feels comfortable with continuing to use that, that is certainly something that staff then would utilize and move forward with putting on our website, on any of our kind of publications or marketing materials. We would utilize that. Otherwise, there's obviously the opportunity to create and craft something different. So that was where I just put a tentative example out there. I have gotten some feedback already on that tentative example. And one of the concerns, which I do agree with, is that it talks about, the city strives to be recognized as a family-oriented, safe, welcoming, and engaged community. There was a question about, not everybody has a family or comes from that background. So there was a little bit of concern about, do we specifically want to call that out or maybe make some alterations to have it be just recognized as an inclusive, welcoming, and engaged college community. Again, I know there's been some comments I've heard about really wanting to emphasize that we are a regional center for business within, Southwest Wisconsin. So I think, again, this is something where we'll have this on again as another discussion item. So please, continue to look at this, ask your friends, ask your neighbors, ask your colleagues, what they think about it, and provide obviously me any feedback. And then eventually we're going to get to a point where I'm going to start saying, okay, we got to make a decision on this if we want to move towards an action item. So I think what we'd like to do is have this, my intention would be to probably have this again be on the agenda for the next probably 2 meetings. And then we particularly look at, as we get into kind of the first meeting in May, looking to have this be an action item that essentially then the council would officially kind of adopt and approve. So, but again, we can obviously alter that as you see fit.
Okay, folks, I suggest that if you have ideas that you take the wording there and of one or both or all and craft it around so that we're not looking at the same thing every time. Kathy?
Yeah, just a question for direction here, Adam. I'm questioning, I've worked with a number of different mission statements, and I guess if we could define exactly what we're going to use the mission statement for, is I personally really liked your tentative example, but a lot of places have a mission statement that is very short, and then they have basically part B that is the vision statement. So I've always been taught that a mission statement should be more of an elevator speech that any one of us could recite quickly. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but is that, are we looking at having both a mission and a vision statement or just one?
So I think it can be whatever we want it to be. So typically what I have seen in municipalities is there usually is two. There's a vision statement and then there is somewhat of a mission statement. The mission statements I've seen with municipalities tend to be kind of three things. They focus on, talk a little bit about your community, talk about always wanting, that we are going to be open and transparent as it comes to government and we want to provide services to the best. So I think there's options. I think, we have our vision statement that was in our comprehensive plan. I think that certainly is an option to use. But I think what I'm just looking for, and I think so I can direct staff accordingly, is what should we be using as you indicated, Kathy, whether it's marketing material or what should be on our website. Should we have both? Should we just have the mission statement? I think those are things we just kind of want to get into a clearer understanding so that when I'm directing staff from a marketing standpoint, or we're working on improvements to the website, or we start looking at more comprehensive documents, just like you said, should there be a vision statement, a mission statement? I think they kind of go back and forth. So there's value, I think, to both, but there also is value to just have something as one.
Okay.
All right. COVID-19, Adam.
All right. So the latest information is as of March 23rd, the past 14 days, Grant County has averaged 3 new confirmed cases. So that has been pretty consistent over the last kind of month here. That number really it's gone up a little bit to about 3.1 or down a little bit, but really has kind of hovered about 3. So again, the latest numbers that I was able to pull this afternoon was there have been a total of 4,736 total confirmed cases of COVID-19 to date in Grant County. 4,600 individuals have recovered. There are still 711 probable cases of COVID-19. There have been 83 unfortunate total deaths of persons who have tested positive for COVID-19, and still 5 total deaths of a person who has been considered a probable case for COVID-19. The most up-to-date university numbers have shown as of yesterday, they have administered 22,888 tests in regards to COVID-19. 55 of those tests have shown to be positive, but within student health services. 4 positive tests have occurred from external students, and then 3 have been positive tests confirmed by employees. They again continue to average about 580 students a day that they're testing based on their requirements. As of March 21st, it's been reported that 2,679,245 vaccines have been allocated in the state of Wisconsin, and over 2,384,898 have been administered. Grant County is indicating that 24.8% of residents, or 12,747, have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine, and over 17.7% of the population, or about 9,055 individuals, have been confirmed to complete 2 doses of the vaccine. Again, there is a county-sponsored community testing is occurring at Tuesdays in Lancaster. So that is something that is continuing. I'm going to be on a meeting tomorrow with a bunch of Grant County Health Department individuals to start talking about the potential for vaccination clinics that could be occurring in Platteville. So the latest information we heard about that on the call on Monday is that starting on the 29th, and I think they've already started to open up the vaccine to individuals between the ages of 16 and up that have an underlying health condition. So obviously any of our employees that fall into that category are starting to be eligible and receive vaccine. We actually have had 6 of our water employees, wastewater employees that have received the vaccine or were eligible due to kind of being in that next category. And then I did ask Grant County Health Department yesterday, potentially when the majority of staff from the, city of Platteville standpoint would be eligible. Right now, it does continue to be May 1st is kind of the time frame that they are indicating. But obviously, if any of our staff falls into the bucket of being at high risk in that category now between 16 and up, they definitely would be eligible. But as soon as we kind of hear additional information, we're going to intend to get that out, obviously, to our employees so that they can choose to get the vaccine if they want. The other thing, obviously, we have been working on is looking at municipal building capacity limits. So that is something that continues to be reviewed not only by Grant County, but DHS and obviously the state. So again, with the fact that the city does not have its own health department, our COVID emergency team that consists of myself, the chief, our fire department, our public works, and also EMS, they tend to defer to Grant County for recommendations and kind of, as well as DHS. So we continue to kind of review as the document shows what other counties are kind of doing in regards to those limits. And they have started to kind of open up capacity to certain areas. So that is something we have done, obviously, to the Brodsky Center as well as City Hall and our auditorium and municipal buildings. But typically what we have been doing and we continue to do is when we find out there is an organization or an event that is looking at having a event going on in the city, we meet with the COVID team and then kind of confer with Grant County and some of the experts to determine what capacity limits should be, what are the best practices, and work with those organizations to try to have those events. So that is kind of where everything is at.
Okay, and the other thing that I would add in terms of a COVID-19 update, I think I sent an email to all council members today to respond to Adam with your feelings, your thoughts about in-person meetings. And so just let Adam know your thoughts, give him a call, send an email, however you feel comfortable. But I want everybody to kind of have input on when do you think it's appropriate and when and how do you think it's appropriate that the council think about returning to the council chambers? And what does that look like to you? So if you can respond to Adam yet this month in the next couple of weeks, that would be very much appreciated.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there anything out there that addresses virtual attendance as far as citizenship on committees and boards, and if someone were to attend meetings from outside of the area over and over again?
Well, I think, Robin, that's exactly one of the things that we need to discuss, and a proposal we'll be bringing forward, because the question is, now that people have attended virtually, so what if I decided I wanted to buy a home in Florida and go there for 6 months? And I just said, well, I still want to be on the council, so I'll just attend virtually.
Yeah, I think to kind of answer
we-
your question, Robin, and I've had this conversation with obviously Barbara and Lean, and now having a chance to be here a year and kind of looking at certain procedures or policies that I think I would recommend the council do is after every election that occurs in April, really there should be kind of a yearly review of what I would consider are the council rules that are in our actual municipal code. And I think one of those one that particularly the council may want to look at implementing is exactly what you indicated, Robin, is in other municipalities I've been in, there has been some guidelines or guidance in regards to, okay, what is a acceptable amount of, absences that can occur from council members, consecutively? And if not, is there the do you, just like you said, do you want to provide those opportunities for ability to be in meetings where you may not be in the area, as Council Doss indicated, you could be somewhere else. So I think those are things that I'm going to slowly start bringing to the council to start having that conversation, and they'll occur directly after the April election. So, and
Robin, we have I've asked Adam, as he meets with the League of Municipalities and also with the Wisconsin City Managers Association, to ask if for best practices that are being implemented around, because the landscape has changed a little, and we need to see what that landscape is, and then we need to have what it is in Platteville. So, good questions, though. Okay, folks, that ends the information and discussion items on our agenda. We do have 2 closed sessions now. And do we have separate numbers for both of those? Are there separate Zoom call numbers for both of those,
No,
or it's just
the
one?
same closed session, correct. So it's one
Yeah,
closed
because
session.
I thought I only saw one. So
Correct.
we would be making, I would need a motion to adjourn closed session, and I would need 2 different statutes cited. 1985 parent 1 parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session economic development. And then for Wisconsin statute 1985 parent B, considering dismissal, demotion, licensing, or discipline of any public employee or person licensed by a board or commission, or the investigation of charges against such person. And
Barb, do we need the 1E, as we stated that we kind of gave the city manager and the attorney?
no, I still think we have another item,
Okay,
not to deal with Southwest Health.
sure, all right.
It's a different item. So, yeah, we do need both. And my understanding is that when we adjourn, we will adjourn without action. There's not action anticipated on either of these in closed session.
That is correct.
Okay. So, who wants to make the motion?
I'd make a motion to go into closed session for Wisconsin statute 19.85 1E and also per Wisconsin statute 19.85 B.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Isaac and Kathy. Candace will vote.
Ross,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, folks, we'll see you shortly.